is Boxing Day. Good morning and welcome to your perfect day starter, the morning brief. This is all of us coming in the best package for you. So considering this is the very first gift you're opening today, I'm Kyle Okikulu.
And I'm Box with excitement, with a lot to look forward to. Of course, the day is pregnant with promise. Welcome, I am Bukola Kuka.
And I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. It's the day after Christmas. As we count down to a brand new year, we hope you're getting ready to the best of your ability to make sure that 2026 is not just a year you're looking up to whether the tax will work for you or against you, or in preparations for the elections in 2027, but you try and make your life even better than whatever outcome there is.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So we're still counting down to the new year. Jeffrey is counting down to the new year. I was counting down to Christmas, so I've handed the baton over to you. But never mind that this is holidays. Security agencies do not go
to sleep.
To sleep.
Just as you and I do not.
Exactly. Essential services, medical, security, telecommunications, do not go to sleep. So just about midnight yesterday, news started filtering in about a strike coordinated by the United States in collaboration with Nigerian authorities on Islamic State militants in Sokoto State. That particular story was first put out by the let me just get it right now. That's the U.S. African Mission it's called the U.S. Africa. That's AFRICOM, right? In Africa, that's essentially the U.S.'s presence, military presence in Africa. So they put out that post about 12:18 saying that AFRICOM conducted a strike at the request of Nigerian authorities in Sokoto State. Yes, they meant Sokoto State. And, well, a lot of people tried to follow the link because there was a link put there just to get a sense of what exactly was happening. The link was broken at first, but eventually it was then corrected to mean Sokoto State. Then we began to see coordinated statements. The U.S. president put out a statement. Nigeria's Ministry of Foreign Affairs put out a statement. And the interesting part is when you put all those statements together, you sort of get a different perspective to how this is being approached. And I think naturally we'll begin with the U.S. president's statement on this one. Then we'll give you the context of the Nigerian government's statement. So the U.S. President Donald Trump
yes, indeed,
put out that statement.
On his Truth Social platform, U.S. President is speaking, and I'm quoting directly from him. Tonight, at my direction as Commander-in-Chief, the United States launched a powerful and deadly strike against ISIS terrorist scum in northwest Nigeria, who have been targeting and viciously killing primarily innocent Christians at levels not seen for many years and even centuries. I have previously warned these terrorists that if they did not stop the slaughtering of Christians, there would be hell to pay. And tonight there was. The Department of War executed numerous perfect strikes as only the United States is capable of doing. Under my leadership, our country will not allow radical Islamic terrorism to prosper. May God bless our military, and Merry Christmas to all, including the dead terrorists, of which there will be many more if their slaughter of Christians continues. Signed, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. Very characteristic of the U.S. president. His braggadocio is there, and of course his language that is more often than not belittling of the opposition is also there. But the gist is the confirmation that the United States government has carried out strikes on terrorist enclaves, quoting from the U.S. president now, in Nigeria's northwest. Jeffrey.
The reason why Kyle said what he said, because if you read these statements, you're not sure what exactly who is saying what. What is fact is that there was an airstrike carried out. We're not sure of the number of casualty, but the issue of cooperation is what is in contention. So this is the language of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Federal Republic of Nigeria confirms that Nigerian authorities remain engaged in structured security cooperation with international partners, including the United States of America, in addressing persistent threats of terrorism and violent extremism. This has led to precision hits on terrorist targets in Nigeria by airstrikes in the northwest. In line with established international practice and bilateral understandings, this cooperation concludes the exchange of intelligence, strategic coordination, and other forms of support consistent with international law, mutual respect for sovereignty, and shared commitment to regional and global security. Nigeria reiterates that all counterterrorism efforts, this is an interesting line, are guided by the primacy of protecting civilian lives, safeguarding national unity, and upholding the rights and dignity of all citizens, irrespective of faith or ethnicity. Terrorist violence in any form, whether directed at Christians, Muslims, or any communities, remain an affront to Nigeria's values and to international peace and security. The federal government continues to work closely with its partners through established diplomatic and security channels to weaken terrorist networks, disrupt their financing and logistics, prevent cross-border threats, while strengthening Nigeria's own security institutions and intelligence capabilities. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs will continue to engage relevant partners and keep the public informed through appropriate official channels. So this is signed by the Kemebi Ebiemfa, who is the spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. If you go to PIDEC headsets, the Secretary of War is also talked about thanking the Nigerian government for its cooperation, that the U.S. government had warned, so Donald Trump has been warning, now they are striking this. So if you look at the choice of words used by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it acknowledges partnership with the United States, but it did not say expressly who struck. But the United States was emphatic and was very clear that we carried out this strike in cooperation with the Nigerian government. But I think the Nigerian government is still trying to manage the narrative around issues of Christian genocide, who is being targeted. Nigerian government says we're targeting killers irrespective of whatever narrative is out there. The American government says we're here to protect Christians. So it's an interesting twist as far as this is concerned. But what is clear is that America is here.
Definitely, Jeffrey, and it's important to really take all of those statements into proper context. If you try to spot the differences or just listen to what is being said, both on paper and what is being said between the lines, you see that the U.S. president, as has been said, was quite specific. He still reiterated the primarily Christian narrative, saying that Christians are being primarily attacked. The Nigerian government statement said that we are protecting lives irrespective of faith or ethnicity. The United States and the U.S. Africa Command was specific about the location, right? But Nigeria's statement said Northwest. The Africa Command said Sokoto. They made the mistake earlier saying Sokoto, but they withdrew it and then said Sokoto. Again, the Africa Command, the U.S. Africa Command was specific about who was hit, and even the president, ISIS, right? The Nigerian statement said terrorists. Terrorism and violent extremism. That was what was said in Nigeria's statement. So you sort of spot the differences. Nigeria is essentially also reiterating that we have other international partners. But America is saying, well, this is us taking the charge, and then, of course, we got some sort of permission or collaboration from Nigeria. So you just get a sense of what is playing out here. It's a very tricky line to walk for Nigeria, because Nigeria and the government has a nation to build and protect in that sense. American president, and America also has its own agenda and always has to look good for the people of America. But one thing is clear: we must bring terrorism, we must cripple terrorism, kill terrorism. So while the modus operandi would always be tricky in terms of coordination, I think we can all agree that this is something that needs to be done. But the fine lines, guys, is what is usually the tricky part. And this is what's playing out.
Yeah, and thank you for pointing out all those differences, Kayode. But one thing is evident, as Jeffrey said, the American government is here. The forces are here. And another significant point to make is that is the surprise element in this. I doubt that anyone was expecting this. Nigerians were certainly not expecting this. Perhaps the Nigerian government was expecting this. Bless you, Jeffrey. Perhaps the Nigerian government was expecting this or knew about this all along and had been in partnership with the U.S. government. And of course, it's an intelligence airstrikes, and information would be discreetly shared. So if that had been in the works all along, perhaps they were left with no choice but to embrace the partnership that the U.S. government was offering because there was no letting down. Recall that the fact-finding mission by the U.S. government, led by Congressman Riley Moore, had come to Nigeria, met with the NSA behind closed doors. The recommendations that he talked about, that if Nigerian government implemented, there would be a significant end to the challenge of terrorism, were not disclosed. And if the U.S. government is saying it on his Truth social media platform following this particular strike, that the killing of Christians primarily, note the word primarily, that means that the U.S. government is doubling down on its position that the killings, the nature of attacks and killings, and broadly the insecurity challenge in Nigeria is targeted at Christians. That means that we insist that this is our position. And the Nigerian government, of course, through its spokespersons, has been all along trying to manage the narrative that it will ensure that Nigeria is safe for all, regardless of the faith. But we must also note the president's statement, which came through ahead of the Christmas celebrations, where he said that the government is making everything, doing everything possible to ensure the safety of people of all faiths, including Christians. So all of those efforts are noted by the Nigerian government. And of course, the Minister of Information spoke ahead of Christmas in the end-of-year press conference, where he said that the diplomatic situation between the Nigerian government and the U.S. government was being managed such that it has even culminated in a partnership where they have signed a health bilateral deal to the tune of $5.1 billion. But that Nigeria and the U.S. are emerging stronger regardless of the differences that have arisen as a result of the security challenge in the country. But what is evident now is that the security collaboration between the U.S. government and the Nigerian government is inevitable and has in fact begun. But what are we now going to be seeing in the coming days? And if a more effective management of the security situation in Nigeria's northwest, we hope in other parts of the country. But in such a situation, hopefully, that Nigeria maintains her sovereignty. And that is key, guys. That was the concern all along.
Because the concern is a legitimate concern, because when we look at everywhere the United States has intervened, we know the relics of how it ended. So we know we have a huge problem on our hands, and sometimes the government sometimes fails to manage those problems until, in fact, it was the conversation that happened at the U.S. Congress that brought a bit of spark to the conversation all along. In fact, if you backtrack, it was when Reverend Dachomo started raising alarm, and all these things has been there for many years. ISIS and all the stories have been there, and sometimes each government, like Jonathan's government, when it started, at some point to even gazette them, to even designate them properly was a problem. The accusation is the fact that I was worried because he was seeking re-election. By the time he designated them, it was already too late. It has grown beyond what we could imagine. And many years after, we're still dealing with all of this. So the problem with the Nigerian government most of the time is acting when they should act as quickly as possible because of issues of the complexities of the situation. There's always the argument of the complexity of the situation. But I like what the president said at the National Assembly when he presented our budget. He said, no more, no mercy. If you bear arm in any form, which was reiterated by the Minister of Information, and you go about killing people, look, you're an enemy of state and you'll be dealt as such. Those are the kinds of languages we want to hear, backed up by action. But this trying to manage things until they fester is what has gotten us here. And the American government, as Kyle just said, and we all know, they have their own, interest in all of this. So they will maintain their position around and in alignment with their interests to do the job they believe should be done. But now we are clear that America is here. The United States came into Nigeria, carried out an airstrike in Sokoto, and killed members of ISIS. We do not know the casualty figure, but what we know that there was a strike. So for those of you who do not know, let's call it breaking news for you. The American airstrike occurred around midnight Christmas Day in Sokoto State, killing ISIS terrorists. The American government has released a statement. Donald Trump has released a statement. The Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, has released a statement. The Nigerian government, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, has also released a statement. So we're trying to match and pair the statement and look at the fine lines between all of this. So it looks like the music just changed to a war song.
And it's very interesting to look at the map on a final note and understand what is playing out. We had that attack on the mosque on the 24th.
We must not forget that.
In the northeast.
Yes.
This,
on Christmas Eve.
Yeah. In the northeast, just the day before Christmas on that mosque. Now, the U.S. strike happened in the northwest. Two extremes.
Two extremes, yes.
Sokoto is extreme, Borno is extreme.
Yeah,
northeast, northwest.
Worlds apart.
On the edges. Now, the attacks that have been referenced primarily on Christians happening in the north central of the nation. So there's a lot of moving parts, but one thing is clear: we need a lot more to combat these issues across board, because really they're happening in different parts. But just to help you understand the map, in case you're wondering, is that related to the northeast, the Borno State bombing? They're different, but hopefully they cascade into each other and improve security altogether. But let's get right into our Boxing Day package for you. On the show today, yes, that's one of the biggest stories, and we'll of course be tracking it. But today on the program, we'll be speaking with a Nigerian journalist who, in the line of duty, his wife and 9-month-old baby were arrested as a result of what is said to be a story that he wrote, an expose he wrote. So we'll be sitting with a Nigerian journalist to find out what exactly happened. Why was his wife, his baby, arrested? Last time we checked, they're not journalists. They didn't write that story. So we'll have him join us today on the program.
That will not be our only concern on the program today. We'll also look at the Balogun market fire. What's responsible for, consistent fires in that particular area in Lagos State? And we'll be speaking to safety experts and sort of get some form of education, create awareness on the need for public safety in offices, even in homes, especially at this time where, structures are susceptible because of the harshness of the weather. So we'll also be looking at safety, fire safety in infrastructure.
And our attention would again shift to River State. No, not politics, but the oil and gas sector, and two parts to it. One has to do with our visit to River State by the National Security Advisor, talking about oil spills on all of that. And on the other flip part, talking about pipeline infrastructure and what is being done in terms of non-kinetic measure by the experts to ensure that our Commonwealth is protected by engaging communities. So that is going to be like a combo from River State today. I'm glad we're not talking politics.
Well, you really cannot avoid all of these things. But there you have it. That's our package. We'll also be talking energy. These things are linked because they keep our economy running. But let's get right into the dailies, as we have joining us Mr. Dayo Akintobi, Public Affairs Analyst, live from the UK. Mr. Akintobi, good morning. Happy Boxing Day to you.
A very good morning to you. Good morning, Nigeria. Merry Christmas. Happy Boxing Day. All of the good tidings and felicitations as due everyone. It's a glorious morning today. Absolutely.
We do love our greetings here in Nigeria. You have to ensure that you put out those greetings, else but Mr. Akintobi, back to the big story, and I imagine you've been following that. Yes, the American president had been saying, well, we're going to go there, we're going to do this, and finally happened yesterday. But you may have also seen the different, statements that were released by the Nigerian government, by the U.S. government, and some people even putting out videos saying this is the aftermath of the airstrike. What do you make of this now that it is happening? What is your interpretation, Mr. Akintobi?
Well, it's a mixed bag, really. There's enough to be cautious about motives. but also as a clear acknowledgement from both governments that the threat is real and that they are collaborating to tackle it. That's the way I see it, is that, well, even though they are framing it differently, Trump and the US are framing it that they are coming in defense of Christians. Nigerian government has said that no, is everybody that's at risk here, Christians, Muslims, and everybody all alike. So there is some dichotomy between both positions, but what is clear is that they both acknowledge that the threat is real and they are collaborating to tackle it. President Trump has put his money where his mouth is. He's been threatening to do this all along, despite the undertones in terms of the discrepancies between the Nigerian government statement and what President Trump said on his Truth Social. The bottom line is they came into Nigeria. I believe it was with the knowledge of the Nigerian government and with the clear consent. Matter of fact, my sense is that the Nigerian government probably even asked them to do this or requested their military involvement. Now, the thing I haven't seen anywhere is the results of the effects of the attack. That to me is the bigger issue. Let's leave the politics behind about whether it's genocide against Christians or whether, as the Nigerian government is saying, it's a terrorism problem against all religions and of all ethnicities and all Nigerians. Question is, how effective was the strike? Did it achieve its intended objective, and was there collateral damage? We know that the terrorists have been using kidnapped victims as human shields. Were they susceptible to some of these bombing raids? And how much has the terroristic capability been decimated? These are some of the things we want. It's okay for the US to come in and lend a hand, but what was the result is more important. Did they achieve the objective? Because if they didn't, then it complicates issues further and probably even will intensify, has the capacity to intensify terroristic threats if they didn't actually wipe out those targets that they went after. I think it's also very important to note that the Nigerian government is acknowledging the fact that we have a problem and is collaborating with all its international allies, all. Now, for the United States to go inside to do this, you know they've got intelligence. They've got one of the best militaries in the world. They've got technological capability. They've got satellites all over out there in space. They've got satellites covering everywhere. They can tell you anything that's going on anywhere in the world at any given time. So I don't doubt for a minute that they knew where the terrorists are. They've known all along that eventually they decided that enough is enough. Remember, there was a bombing, I think I alluded to it, in Maiduguri on Christmas Eve. And I think as of now, the casualties, about 13 to 15 people were killed. So terroristic activity has continued to escalate. It's clear that ISIS is embedded in the north. It's clear. I mean, and it's clear that we've not done enough, whether for political reasons, for military reasons, for ability reasons, we've not done enough to arrest it. And so the US has stepped in. Well, it's a mixed bag. Let's see how it goes. As I've said, there's motive. We cannot say there's no motive. There is motive. What that motive is, if President Trump and America is saying, oh, we want to defend Christians in Nigeria, okay, so if that's their basis, then as long as they're helping us to solve the problem, even though we don't acknowledge the fact that it's strictly against Christians, let's solve the problem. Most important thing is the killing has to stop. Enough is enough. However it's going to happen, whatever is going to take, and whoever is going to collaborate with us to do it, the killing should stop. That is the best Christmas present that Nigerians could be given. The best way for us to enter New Year is for us to eliminate this threat once and for all.
Yeah, but our worry is just, how well the sovereignty of Nigeria will be protected amid all of this, and how long will this airstrike last? You know, will there be more precision strikes in other parts of the country? You know, the mapping that Kari gave us earlier on drew our attention to the fact that this has been carried out in the northwest, but there's also insurgency in Nigeria's northeast, which is moving further down the north central, where Christians are being predominantly killed. But we'll keep our eyes closed on this developing incident in the coming days. Let's look at this Nigeria on this Boxing Day, Mr. Kitobi, and of course the lead story is also about security. How bombers struck Maiduguri Mosque on Christmas Eve. Military. Northern governors condemn attack. Tinubu orders immediate security beef up. There you have it, Mr. Kitobi. Another security concern.
Yes, another incident. I mentioned this a bit earlier. Yes, Christmas Eve, they struck at a mosque. It's a bit ironic, perhaps, that they would choose an Islamic center on a Christmas symbolically important day. Whether that means they're trying to send a message or whether it was random, we don't really know. But I see the president ordering immediate security beef up, and I ask myself, hang on, wasn't it just last week when he was giving his budget speech that he ordered the same immediate security beef up? How can we continue to order beef up after beef up after beef up? The mission is clear. It's been clear all along. When things like this happen, yes, the president should commiserate with the affected people. He should reassure Nigerians, but the military already has his marching orders. If we are ordering immediate security beef up, does it mean that the security the security array was not adequate enough to begin with, that it requires the commander-in-chief to now order a beef up? I think we've been under siege for long enough to where security should already be beefed up everywhere. Well, you don't have enough military capability to where you have formations in each and every community. It's not possible. But I believe that our military must have been on high alert all this time. And high alert simply means that they should be they should be fully engaged and ready to mobilize at a moment's notice. So to me, that is a bit of rhetoric, that notion of ordering immediate security beef up. We've been hearing it and hearing it and hearing it. And how much have the security beef ups in the past helped to reduce this kind of incident? So, well, our hearts go out to the families of those who are involved in this most recent incident in Maiduguri and all the other places across the country where this kind of thing is happening. Bukola, as you mentioned a bit earlier, what is the scope of the U.S. interest? Where do the strikes stop? Are they limiting to one region? Are they going other places? Are they staying beyond their welcome? We know U.S. intervention in other places. We've seen it in Libya, we've seen it in Iraq, we've seen it in Syria, we've seen it all over the place, and it never ends very well. And that sovereignty question you brought up definitely is something that we need to be watching our rear end on. I don't believe for a minute that the U.S. will invade Nigeria from the standpoint of doing it unilaterally without our involvement. I think we're a strong enough country and a global enough force to be reckoned with to where our sovereignty will be respected. So I doubt that our sovereignty is under threat, but I do believe that they say when you die with the devil, do it with a very long spoon. I believe that we should be very cautious in the extent to which we allow the U.S. to be involved in our internal security affairs.
Well, while we're talking about security, let's talk about some internal politics playing out within the presidency. Perhaps there were, the rumor mill had it that the president has changed his chief of staff. And it was all over the place that Femi Gbajabiamila has been replaced by Morokunla, who is the private secretary of the president. Well, yesterday, Mr. Bayo Onanuga came out and said that is untrue, that Femi Gbajabiamila remains the chief of staff of the president. Morokunla also remains in his role as the private secretary to Mr. President. They used to say there's no smoke without fire. What do you think is going on here?
Well, Femi Gbajabiamila job has been under threat for quite a while, to tell you the truth. Initially, there were a lot of thoughts that he wasn't actually appropriate for that position in terms of what a chief of staff really needs to do. And when the administration started initially, they felt he was a bit too visible. And there was a power tussle. Remember, all sort of politics, whether cabal, whether kitchen cabinet, whatever you may call it, it's all about power centers. There are power centers all over the place. And Femi Gbajabiamila has the ear of the president, and also is the gatekeeper. Somebody once described him as none shall pass. It means that nobody can get to the president without going through him, and his policy was that no, you're not getting to the president no matter what. So his job has always been under threat. I mean, people have always spoken in the president's ear about he's not appropriate for the job, he's this, is that, but the president has confidence in him. Akim Muriokola is a very young, upcoming person that the president personally plucked to be his private or principal secretary and brought him from the civil service in Lagos. He's actually been one of the president's boys in Lagos for quite a long time, highly regarded. At one point, there was even rumors that he was going to be presented for governor of Lagos State at some point. But because he has a very deep personal and confidential relationship with the president, there have always been speculations of his ability to win the president over on issues and on policies and on things that he feels are important. So the question is, who is a heavier weight between Gbajabiamila and Muriokola? But for those kind of rumors to have come out, certainly something was underway in the presidency, in the very, very highest echelons of government. It may have been arrested. It won't surprise me if the flame has been doused at this point. But the fact that it got out at all means that, yes, something was, there was a state of flux going on in the presidency over the weekend.
You know, whatever the case, Mr. Akintobi, I think for the average Nigerian, if you like, put a robot there or whatever it is, just ensure you deliver good governance.
End of story, end of story. Nigerians don't even care. We don't even know names. We don't want to know names. We don't want to know faces. We just want results.
Absolutely.
We don't care who is in what position. Just deliver the results.
Absolutely.
As Chief of Staff, very pivotal role to the efficiency of the presidency. So
Indeed.
Even if we don't care, at the end of the day, the person that occupies that position
really matters.
Really matters.
Absolutely, Mr. Akintobi. But we'll keep watch. I think during the holidays, a lot of things happen because, you know, Nigerians are busy eating the chicken and all of that. So we are here to ensure that they don't miss anything. But we have to thank you so much, Mr. Dai Akintobi, for joining us on our paper review on this Boxing Day. Wish you the very best, sir.
Thank you, my pleasure. You guys didn't send me the memo about this color code today. Look at me all in black and white. And you guys so colorfully turned out on Boxing Day.
Is that what I should be? We
shall address that grievous error in New Year.
I'm with you on this one, Mr. Akintobi, because I didn't get the memo myself.
We're the Ashwebi boys. Well, we'll take a break. We'll take a quick break now. And when we return, we'll get into all of our big conversations for today. We started off with the Nigerian journalist whose wife and baby were arrested. He was eventually detained as well, but he joins us right here on our studio because of a story that he did. Stay with us. Well, let's get right into our first conversation. They say an injury to one is an injury to all. And if we're trying to build a society, then we must ensure that press freedom is non-negotiable, which is why a lot of people were shocked to hear that in the process of trying to get to a journalist, the police went through his wife and child, sort of detained them and used him as bait. But we have joining us right here in our studio, Sadiqa Atonda, a senior investigative reporter, Foundation for Investigative Journalism. Sadiq, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Good morning, Okikela.
It's good to have you on the show. I imagine that it must have been a very harrowing experience for you, having your wife and child arrested in the process trying to get to you. So let's walk back a bit. Walk us through what exactly played out for the benefit of those who may have not followed the story.
Okay, so I wrote the story in November about the COS transaction for COS means certificate of sponsorship that is usually needed for employment in the US. So there was a man who paid for 2 individuals, and then he paid this money to one Mr. Awuyinfa Adeyemi. So he paid this it was £15,000, and then the man did not deliver the COS. And that was the complaint that we got at FIJ. And we collected all the evidence that we needed, including receipts, transaction receipts, and then their WhatsApp chats, all of them, a bulk of evidence. And then I wrote this story, and before we wrote the story, I contacted the man on the other side, that was Adeyemi, and then his lawyer responded, and their own response was also part of the story. And the lawyer said the matter was being investigated at the Akubo police station in Ibadan. So I referred to my source, and then the man said the matter was not being investigated. So because my source was the one who actually initiated the report at the Akubo police station in Ibadan. And I called the DPO who was involved in that case at the time, and then the man said the matter never went into a full investigation. That all he did was to call Adeyemi on the phone, because he said Adeyemi was in the UK at the time, and then my source too was in the UK when this transaction happened, and then he recommended that my source takes up the case with him in the UK where the matter happened, and that was the last conversation they had on that matter. And the man said even if the matter was being investigated, it's past 2 years, and the police have never, if at all the matter was being investigated, he had never been contacted for any clarification since then. So that was the story we published. And then after publication, his lawyer reached out to say we should retract the story and publish an apology, and then agree on compensation that we are willing to pay his client. And then I informed my editor, and then my editor took notice of that, and then he said if they want to take up a legal action with us, probably beyond the letter, then we will be expecting any further communication with them. And then so in the days and weeks that followed, I observed through personal security tips, I observed that my phone had been infected. So I noticed that my phone was being tracked. So I informed my employer, FIJ, my editor-in-chief, my editor. So everybody was aware, and then we decided to publish an alert that this was happening to my phone. And so one of the sources I suspected was tracking or had infected my phone with a tracking device was an officer from the IGP monitoring units at Obalende. So this man sent an invitation to me on WhatsApp. He just sent it on WhatsApp, and I was asking who is this person, and he didn't mention his name. I said he works there, and I said okay. The first thing I noticed was that the headshot on his profile was that of the president, and I was like, I don't have the impression that I'm chatting with a policeman. I suspect this is a politician. So if this invitation is legitimate at all, then I am not the right person to receive this. So I gave him our editorial email address through which we receive communications like that. That okay, forward this to this email address, and then we will respond to you. And then he said, me? No, it was not for my organization, but for me. But that was a lie. I told him this must be work related, and you cannot invite me in my personal capacity. So I told my editor all of this, and my editor-in-chief too, and then his response to my request to forward the email to forward the letter to our email address was that all right, sir, no problem. And I think 2 or 3 days after, when I confirmed from our admin department.
So you didn't get a mail?
So I sent a reminder to him that please, we are still expecting your email address, your letter through our email address, so that we can appropriately respond. And then he did not say anything.
So how did it spiral to the arrest of your wife?
So I was at work on Monday, and I was going to stay longer beyond the close of business because I had a story I was working on. But I think some minutes after 4 to 5, my wife called me that my baby was sick, and she thought that she should go to the hospital, but she wanted to wait for me until I come home. I said, if it's a serious matter, you don't have to wait for me. Then go to the hospital. Then as I'm coming back from work, I will just join you there. Then I said,
how old is your baby?
9 months.
9 months, all right.
So born in March last year. No, March this year rather. So then after our first call, I called again that how serious is the situation that you want us to go to the hospital, right? So have you given him preliminary medicines, because she has a couple of syrups that it takes. She said she had done that and the situation was stabilizing. How many times have you done this? When did you even notice that she had a fever? She said in the morning. Okay, how many times have you given him syrups today? And he said in the morning. She said in the morning and then in the afternoon. Okay. I said, okay, I'm coming home. And she told me, oh, maybe she does not want to go to the hospital again. So I said, okay, just wait for me and then I'll come home. So while speaking with her, I overheard some voices in the background, male voices. And I asked her that, okay, is the situation that serious that
who are the people
that
in the
infected our neighbors? Because I thought people in the background were our neighbors. She said no. I thought if she was in the bedroom or in the sitting room, I wouldn't be hearing those voices. She said no, she didn't invite anybody. Okay, wait for me. So I was going home, and when on my way, I called her again. Okay, I'm almost home, and then she said, okay, no problem. So, not knowing that all those times when I was speaking with her, she was at the Owutu police station with my baby. So, but when and then let me also mention that her phone was with the police officers. So each time I had to call her, they will be the one to pick the call and put it on speaker for them to hear our conversation. And I never knew all of this. Then I was going home, and they will say, they will ask her to ask me where I was, and then I will tell her because I didn't know anything. And
so, just to be clear, the point that your wife called you that your baby was ill,
yes,
she was at the police station.
Yes.
So your child wasn't really ill at that point?
It wasn't really.
So was it the police that told your wife to trick you?
Yes.
To say that your wife, your baby is ill and she'll come?
Yes. They even told her that she should make it more serious, that I would have to leave whatever I was doing to come. That they told her to say she was ill, and then he was ill, and then had been rushed to the hospital, because they even wanted to follow her to the hospital, to a particular hospital around Isawu, and then go there and speak with a doctor on duty to say this was their mission, so that the hospital will cooperate with them. But when I said my wife should wait for me, that was how they didn't go. And then she asked them to allow her to tell me where she was. And then they said no, that if I knew, then I would not come, I would run away. So I got home. Then when they knew that I was on my way home, then they left Owutu police station to our neighborhood, to my area. And then they parked somewhere by the roadside. So by the time I came down from a bus, I entered into the street, and my wife pointed me to them that's it. Then they followed me. So I knocked the door thinking that she was inside, and then everywhere was silent. Nobody answered me, and then I was like, what's the problem? before I could turn back, someone just held me by the waist, saying, "You're under arrest." There were two. And I was like, what's my offense? And immediately that happened, I knew that was the outcome of the tracking that I had suspected all along. So I followed them, and they said I should calm down because my wife and baby are in their car. So that was what got me angry. That's what is the problem? Why did you arrest my wife in my place? I said I should just calm down. I should just calm down. So I did not calm down because I was very, very angry. So we got to the roadside. There was a scene. People had to come. People had to come to know what was happening. But of course, there wasn't anything they could do.
So if you get yours, because let's posit your story correctly. You wrote a story.
Yes, sir.
Which got maybe some persons uncomfortable.
Yes.
And then they decided to involve the police.
Yes.
And the police, in carrying out their investigation or their responsibility, did not follow due process, because you said they sent you a WhatsApp message. I don't know how that works, because if you send me a WhatsApp message, I'm not even going to answer you. And then you were kind enough, based on what you said, to say, please, it's a corporation I'm working with, and you know how structured it is. Please, write to the corporation, we'll respond to you appropriately. Rather than do that, they resorted to this Gestapo approach, because that's what I see it as, to pick up your wife and your child and make their wife to lie so that they can lure you to the police station. Is that what you're saying?
Actually, yes.
Beyond what you have said so far, was there any other form of invitation handed to you that you declined to honor?
No.
What is the name of the police officer?
There were three. I don't know the third person's name, but I know of two.
What
one was Officer Moses, and then the other was Officer Okpe Irianacho.
Which police station?
Force headquarters, Obalende, at Kamsalem House, Obalende. So they said they were attached to the IGP monitoring unit.
Who do they report to?
I think they report to the IGP.
Directly?
Yes, because they are called IGP monitoring units. So of course I believe they have commanders, but that is their title. I'm going by that particular title. I believe the IGP knows about their operations.
So sorry, Bukola. So now they arrested you with your child and your I want to put it correctly, your 9-month-old baby, because
yes,
that is a very serious offense. That's why I'm asking all of this detail, because we're already escalating it. Whoever did this has to answer a lot of questions. And it's a very, very serious question the person must answer on this matter. So after they arrested you, and you say you were infuriated because they arrested your wife, especially your child with your wife,
yes,
what now happened after then? Did they release them immediately? What exactly did they do with them?
They didn't release them immediately. The two of them had to follow us. I mean, for us, the police officers and myself, and my wife and baby, we had to go to the Owutu police station together.
So, sorry for cutting you. I'm building a case here. Following you means that they wanted her to follow you,
yes,
or
yes,
she said, I want to follow my husband.
They wanted her to follow me.
Okay.
So then we go back to Owutu police station, and then I entered the premises, but she stayed outside to make some calls. So all along, our phone was with them. Was with the police officers. So when we were done, we went inside to. They had to go inside to inform the police officers or the head of that station that they were done with the operation in that area. And then we came out, and then that was where they returned our phone, and she wanted to follow us, but they said she could not. So it was at that point that they released her and then released her phone.
So what did they do with you?
They took me. They drove me from that police station, down to police station to Obalende. And before we got to Obalende, we had to go to Oshodi first, where the third officer or the third person, I don't know his name, alighted. I don't know his final destination, but the place she came down was at Oshodi, near a police station that is around the BRT terminal there.
So, cumulatively, how long was your wife and child detained for?
For about 5 hours.
For about 5 hours. And eventually they were released after 5 hours?
Yes.
And how long were you detained?
I was not put in any room, because by the time we got to Walende, the officers who arrested me said they wanted to add me over to the IPO. So the IPO was not immediately ready. So I sat down for about an hour, handcuffed, because handcuffs were.
You were handcuffed?
Yes, I was handcuffed.
What was a charge read out to you? Because I don't understand the handcuff part.
So when they eventually handed me over to the IPO, he asked them to remove the handcuffs, and then he was taking me into the service. In fact, he wanted to even go and detain me, because one officer said what I did was bad, I did a very bad job or whatever, and that I should be, the IPO should go and sign a detention warrant inside and detain me until the next stage, when I will be produced in court. So while I was going upstairs to do that, I think he got a call from. He said he got a call from his commander that the IGP has ordered my release with immediate effect. So, and some minutes later, we went upstairs together. We went to his office, and then I signed a release bond on self-recognition. So, and he gave me a copy of the petition. So in the petition, I saw that the petition was not just about me. That was why I said earlier that what the officer said, what that particular officer who sent me the letter on WhatsApp said, that the letter was for me and not my organization. That was why I said it was a lie. My name was mentioned as many times as FIJ was mentioned in that particular petition. So why did this single out me as an individual and not the organization that I work for? So I read the petition, and then he wanted me to make a statement, but I said I was not going to make a statement. My editor-in-chief also had to call that I should not make any statement until my lawyers are around, and I'm also, because the instruction or the directive was that I should be released unconditionally.
So I'm wondering if you're going to take up, the illegal and very unjust detention of your family besides you. I'm wondering if you're going to take that up because it should. It's totally condemnable. But building your case now, the instigator and the lawyer whom the story touched on, they have still not written officially to your organization as you required up until this time. So what is the next line of action now around the case and, of course, the case that has been initiated against you?
Well, we have not heard anything from the police since I was released about taking up a case with them. It's still a conversation we are having at FIJ. So, but there's also another aspect that I've not touched on. It's the fact that 3 of my neighbors were first arrested before they got my wife. So they used 3 of my neighbors. They arrested them one after the other because they could not get to me directly. They could not get to my wife directly because they were tracking the 2 of us together, but they could not find a way. So they arrested the people my wife was communicating, because I think when they are tracking someone, they have access to their phone book. So they know who you speak with frequently. So it was one of those people that they first picked, and then that person's wife was invited. The person's wife was told that if they did not produce my wife, then the man will not be released. So the man's wife, when came to our neighborhood, then she picked someone else. So they went back to the Ogutu police station together, and then when that person got to the Ogutu police station, they showed the person my wife's phone number. They dialed my wife's phone number on her phone, and then they saw our phone number come up, and then they came to our apartment again, and then that was when they picked me up. So three persons.
All of this because of the story you did?
Yes, yes.
So we wanted to share your story and have you speak to it, because for a lot of people this happens and they never get a chance to speak about it. So this highlights the operations of the police. Yes, I know that the Inspector General of Police, Balogun, ordered the sanction of the head of that police unit and all of that. We'll follow that up as well. But to highlight some of these practices, so the police authorities will be fully aware, I imagine they're aware, but at least it's on record that this has been spoken about, and they must do right. If you want to pick up someone, there are procedures. There's what the law says. You did a story, you didn't commit a crime, right? But Sadiq, we have to thank you so much. I imagine that this has been traumatic. Do you feel safe, by the way, right now? Yes or no?
Well, I do not feel safe until I do one or two things that I'm doing personally.
All right. But we're going to be following the story. We should do the very best.
So please touch base with us and all of that. And Kayode has talked about sanction. I would like to know what kind of sanction. Because anybody who crosses that line of decency, any sanction apart from dismissal and prosecution is not a sanction in my books. This is a 9-year-old child. Under no circumstances, 9 months old,
even if
9 months old
child.
Whoever that police officer is, whoever gave that order, should be sacked and disgraced out of our force, because that is not a representation of the practice of the Nigerian police force that we are friends to. We do, because we're all in this together.
Absolutely.
You know, sometimes they feel we're not enemies of anyone. We're just doing our job.
Yes.
So if you have a problem with anything we're doing, there's a channel to do that. We're involved in 9 months old baby. That's where I think everybody must condemn.
And it's solid, Atana. We have to thank you so much for your time, senior investigative reporter at the FIJ. Please, I wish you the very best.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. So clearly this is a case that we are following closely, and we really must say that the police should also deploy these tactics when fighting kidnappings and all of that, because this is where we really need all of those tactics to draw out the kidnappers, to draw out those who are committing heinous crimes in the country. We'll take a moment now, and when we return, we'll talk about the Lagos fire. Let's listen to the Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu speaking about that and bring you more.
The initial report that shows that the fire started on the 4th and the 5th floor, which is somewhat over the ground floor. And if you notice, the first responders were on ground. They came with aerial ladder, fire equipment that could attack, the fire at that level. But over time, especially from around 8 p.m. last night, the fire became very aggressive, and it moved to other higher floors. Initial suspicion will mean that there are a lot of inflammable, combustive materials that were all in the storage facilities, which made, ability to be able to respond and kill and quench the fire a lot more difficult. So far, I'm told that there are no casualties, thankfully, but we've taken about 7 to 10 people to hospital with the Lasema ambulances that we have here. You've seen that the main building, there's been 2 partial collapse that you can notice. And so what you will see is eventually we'll have to take down this building, the entire building. I've set up a committee that will be headed by the Honorable Commissioner for Special Duties, who will bring forward, what will be the best mode for us to bring down the entire building within the shortest possible time.
Welcome back. It's still the morning brief right here on Channels Television. And you just heard the governor of Lagos State there, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, speaking on the fire that occurred in the market at the Afriland Towers just days ago, and according to reports, the fire, the Great Nigeria Insurance House, and according to reports, the fire continues even after safety efforts. Firemen have been deployed to the scene. Let's get more perspectives, especially about how to prevent further fire disasters in the future. And joining us to help on this particular one, we have virtually Mr. Fire Williams, Fellow Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria. Mrs. Fire Williams, she's a Fellow Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria, and she joins us virtually on the program. Good morning, madam. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. And unlike what Dayo Akitobi said, I got the memo, so I'm one up on him this morning.
Yes, indeed, you got the memo. But speaking of those who do not get the memo, more often than not, it would have to be our fellow Nigerians at the Balogun market. How can we begin to attribute the constant fire safety concerns? Is it more as a result of human error, or we should be attributing it to the harsh weather conditions, that we often experience at this time of the year?
Yes, firstly, I would like to send a note of sympathy to those who must have lost a lot of assets, their goods. At this time of Christmas, this would be quite difficult for them. Many others have been displaced. This fire at GNI, as you rightly said, has spread to 4 or 5 buildings. So some people will not be in their homes right now, and we express our concern and commiseration. Now, with regards to preventing these fires, it is so unfortunate that we are going through this again. You had mentioned the Afriland's fire, which took place 16th September. And I have been, talking about how to prevent this by putting in place an emergency action plan. We need all buildings that are multi-story, even a building, your own flat, your own home, should have an emergency action plan. And just to underscore this, somewhere in the middle of the year, a 30 kVA generator caught fire. We had 2 9 kg DCP equipment. We brought them out. A neighbor from across the road brought that out. Fire quenched, insurance cover. We got the money to do the repair. That is how losses should be properly mitigated. So a situation, what we have in Nigeria, I would say, is the total lack of safety awareness among the populace. Always reaching out to say, come over to Macedonia and help us. It's not going to work. You are a facility manager of a 25-story building. You should have a risk assessment done, an emergency response team, designated fire wardens who patrol. You must have the right fire equipment, including wet risers, fireballs, addressable fire alarm system, sprinkler system, high pressure hose. If you give me the opportunity, I will give you a real life case study of a 27-story building that has all the best practices, and they've kept fire at bay for the past 10 years, and they're in Lagos. This same Lagos where we've had 50 market fires in the past 7 years.
No, you can go right ahead, because the idea is to curb reoccurrence, because although it is reduced, but at some point it looks like a constant incident, if you will, during the Yuletide. Especially at peak periods, you hear these things happen, the Harmattan and all of that, and you begin to wonder, is it that we don't learn our lessons? So there's a disconnect somewhere. So please go right ahead before I throw in my question.
Thank you very much. So the Institute of Safety Professionals, which I belong to, I'm a fellow of, and equally passionate about safety, we have been calling for a paradigm shift. in the way people address these incidents. It's always, oh, fire service didn't arrive in time. What have you done on a micro level to ensure you are well equipped? So going quickly over to the case study of the 27-story building right there on Marina in Lagos, they have employed 12 professional fire service officers to cover 24/7. So you have shifts. And there's always fire service officials, trained professionals on ground. They have fire marshals on every floor. They made policies, including no use of extension boxes from your home and using your own microwave or your own kettle, nothing like that. They switch off lights after 9 p.m. They have a multi-gallon Braithwaite tank on the roof of this 27-story building, not linked to any restroom or any domestic use. It's straight there to augment whatever water the fire tender brings. They have a fire tender, they have equipment with ladders reaching up to the 11th floor. So we had our Governor Sanwo-Olu, our dear governor, who did say that the fire started from about the 4th or 5th floor, and have been in touch with some of the safety professionals who were right there, you know, who were eyewitnesses to when this thing started. I spoke to the person who made the first call because we have several WhatsApp groups and the safety professionals are always collaborating. You know, so the equipment that first came, it appears we were not able to get to that floor. And again, people prioritize security, boarded up the whole place. Hardly did you have any ventilation. Hardly could you have access. So the fire raged on uncontrollably. This is not how to build. This is not how to store. If we are going to convert a building to a warehouse, it must be library style with aisles. We need to stack, we need to ventilate, and we need to make sure that 3 ingredients that must come together to cause a fire are separated: fuel, oxygen, and a source of heat or ignition. When you talk about fuel, people are thinking of a jerry can of petrol. That is not fuel. That's not the only fuel. Shoes burn, clothes burn, curtains burn, lamps burn, panels, polyethylene, and all kinds of panels in the cladding of walls of building, they burn. Furniture burns. So those are all fuel. So whenever you have fuel, in inverted commas, in any place, you must make sure there's no source of heat, and there must be proper access, proper exits to all these places. I'll pause there.
Well, Madam, we must talk about our building practices, and I know you made reference to it, because it's sad to say, but there are other fires waiting to happen, seeing
it's sad.
The way our buildings are constructed. First off, the construction practices, as much as people say, well, let's speak good of, you know, the place, I'm sorry, it's below par. Because when fires then happen, access is even tough. First, the buildings are erected in such ways that there's poor ventilation, there isn't much space, almost like they erected it to help the fire happen. And then everywhere is choked. It's choked up. So I don't know if this is how we just continue to live and keep, you know, they say you pray and reject that the fire won't happen. Well, something must give. And I don't know if that conversation is happening. And what does it look like we must do to ensure that at least we have a semblance of decency and I don't know.
Prayer alone will not do it. We need to take action. Like I said, the Institute of Safety Professionals is calling for a paradigm shift. Just as we had reforms in the tax sector, we need reforms in virtually every sector. So this will come with some political will. In a mega city like Lagos, there may be need to selectively look at buildings that are totally inaccessible, blocking, you know, the free entrance of these fire tenders, you know, preventing the regulators from doing their job. There may be a need. I'm not in the government, so the government will have to sit down and look at that, because the government has done some demolition of slum areas in the past. And again, I would like to say that Lagos State particularly had some good initiatives with regard to fire safety and awareness. It's an organization, Rely Supply Limited, has supplied over 100 schools in a particular education district with smoke detectors and fire extinguishers, and we did small on-the-side training. It's a good initiative, but that's one district out of 6. So how do we start getting a policy in place that any school, whether private or practice, must have X equipment, X trained personnel, designated first aider in place? If you are managing a high-rise building, because I was lucky to be invited to speak to Association of Facility Management, of Nigeria, the Lagos State branch, in October 25th after the Afriland fire. They said it was an eye-opener for them, a complete eye-opener, that a facility manager has such responsibilities. A facility manager is a lifesaver, and every one of those buildings must have facility managers, must have a safety officer, should have fire safety marshals in place. Now let's talk about environmental conditions. There are wildfires going on all over the world. You know what has happened in Spain and Portugal. You know what has happened in Australia. You know what's happened in America. Obviously, environmental conditions would aggravate a fire. And when you have buildings that are sandwiched together, almost like sardines in a can, it is an accident waiting to happen. So as we are praying, I'm praying for political will to prevent this kind of construction going on, to insist that current multi-level story buildings come up for a meeting and make sure that they have the right personnel, the right equipment, and the right attitude to safety. Because if you don't do fire drills, we're going to experience what we saw in Afriland, people wanting to jump through windows, jumping, unfortunately, to their death. Very sad. So we need to change a whole lot of things. Thank you.
What you've just said is quite instructive, an appropriate attitude to fire safety. And perhaps we should just, draw attention to the significance of the location of this fire. It is happening right at the heart of the hub of commerce in Lagos. I'm sure that I have shopped in one of the shops that I'm seeing, right here on my screen. And a number of Nigerians who are watching now may have at one time or the other shopped in one of these, shops, that has been engulfed by flames. It is an international, by no form of exaggeration, commerce hub. And so as a result of the significance of this historical shopping center, who should be taking responsibility for instituting this paradigm shift that you talk about? Because the Lagos fire safety controller has been putting out an explanation, and he said despite the fact that they got there on time, about within 15 minutes of the distress call, that the presence of combustible materials in the building made it difficult to contain the fire, and that speaks of a serious lack of understanding of fire safety. So who should be taking responsibility for this and engendering this paradigm shift in terms of safety culture in buildings that you're talking about?
Thank you. Now, I just want to quickly mention that I know this place like the back of my hand. Historically, my mom is from Lagos, and Iga Kosoko used to be a regular, holiday visit for us, running along Martins, Bangboshe, and all that in Lagos. Many of us have nostalgia, of this area. And of course, we have shopped in some of the places we are seeing in ruins. Is particularly saddening. So safety, as we say it in ISPON, Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria, is everybody's responsibility. And safety begins with the man in the mirror. Safety never takes a holiday. So we need all stakeholders to come together. The government is free to call on the professional bodies. We have societies of engineers, we have the ISPON, we have Facility Management Association. Let's all come together. the Lagos Safety Commission has been a very, good, fulcrum for us to leverage, to talk, about these things. And we need to get them going more. We need to say more and do more. The Market Women's Association, the Traders Association, I tell you, you cannot find a more organized association. This is an association that will tell people, don't open your shop today, and you dare not. So if we can only get them to do the right thing, have regular safety talk, do fire drills, and then we need the people who run the buildings to live up to their responsibility. These buildings are not being let out for free. So it's not only Taiwo Oyedele that is seeing millions and billions somewhere. There are millions and billions exchanging hands, but some of it needs to be invested in safety. So we need to ask first for the owners, the operators of these buildings, just like Lagos State asks landlords to make certain provisions like toilets and so on, to provide security and so on. Then we must have that same level of compliance in this sector. Right. And then when it comes to attitude change and all that, all hands have to be on deck. Orientation programs, learning from incidents, establishment of emergency action plans, having floor plans. In a developed country, all the floor plans of these buildings will be in the fire service. We have to change. We have to do better than we're doing now. If not, we're just waiting for the next fire, God forbid. And
we hope that will not be the case, but it's a fine place to anchor for reflection for everyone. We want our beloved Balogun market to thrive and not to be engulfed by fire seasonally. And thank you so much, ma'am. We've been talking with Mrs. Fayo Williams, Fellow, Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria. Thank you for coming through on this one.
Thanks for having me. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas and happy Boxing Day to you.
Bye-bye.
We'll take a moment now. When we return, we'll touch on the environment in the Niger Delta area. Another important conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Let's talk about the oil and gas sector. I'm bringing our guest, Mr. Victor Udo, is an oil and gas expert, joining us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Udo, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Good morning.
Yeah, I was looking through some of the data available to us. When you look at the numbers from, say, 2021 or more, in terms of pipeline breaches and stealing of crude oil from those pipelines, there was a time we were doing in hundreds of thousands of crude oil per day being stolen from those pipelines. But now we see record low numbers. I think as was reported by the NUPRC, we came to about tens of thousands, maybe about 10 or slightly more than that in barrel per day being lost to breaches. So what I'm saying is there's been some improvement, and this improvement is not circumstantial. I know that the PINL, that's the Pipeline Infrastructure Nigeria Limited, played a key role in all of this. But walk us through this success story, and let's see how we can build on it as far as Nigeria's oil and gas sector is concerned, because this is important, because we still struggle to get to our quota as provided by OPEC. Sometimes we get there, we don't get there. So if you analyze our production based on NUPR data, we're talking around 1.3, 1.4, sometimes maximum 1.5 crude oil, not condensate, that will produce every day. And that is off the mark on even our budget assumption.
It will be very interesting if we take a historic look at what has happened. Like you said, there's been significant improvement, but just that I did not totally agree with your last statement that said that we run within 1.5, 1.6. I think in November we run 1.8. and the budget for next year is pegged at 1.84. Some of us are very confident that
Mr. Odo, my apologies.
Niger Delta
My apologies, Mr. Odo, if you can hear me. I was very careful with my words. I said crude oil, not condensate.
Okay.
Crude oil, not condensate. So when you add condensate to it, it now becomes that number.
Okay, thank you. But going straight to the question you raised, what has happened between 2001 and now, is that those responsible for checking and for ensuring that incidences within the pipelines in the Federal Republic of Nigeria are minimized have suddenly got their acts together. When I say suddenly, I mean like from last year, 2023, 2024. We all know that by the laws of Nigeria, the armed forces are supposed to protect critical national infrastructure. But when that was not working enough, the civil defense was drafted in to take this responsibility. And along the line, it was also discovered that the desired results were not coming as expected. And the deployment and engagement of private surveillance company was initiated. I think the progress that has been recorded is as a consequence of non-conventional methods deployed by the companies that were brought on board to assist in making sure that the facility of critical national asset of oil and gas within the Niger Delta are better protected and preserved. Why I say this is because what the private companies have been able to do, they've been able to think outside the box and do what we refer to as a remodeling of the concept of protecting and securing our pipelines within the Niger Delta. How did they do this? They begin to introduce things that are not conventionally deployed for securing pipelines or for protecting critical national assets. Example is they introduce what we refer to as CSR, corporate social responsibilities. They introduce things like community engagement, and then they introduce things like intervention in the day-to-day life of the people within the region. I think that was as a consequence of a deep understanding that the issues that lead to interfering with pipelines in the Niger Delta is anchored on the feeling of exclusion by the people of the Niger Delta, is anchored on the dissatisfaction of the benefit that gets to the people, is anchored on the dissatisfaction of being seen as strangers within the play of managing oil resources in Nigeria, whether you talk about processing or taking of the benefit. So what the companies that were brought in were able to do were to look at what the people think, responded to what the people think by addressing the people's thinking. And in the uniqueness of the people of the Niger Delta, they responded positively by encouraging youth within the community, by encouraging people within their domain to desist from destroying government infrastructure that convey oil and gas. Looking at these issues critically, I will personally think that for every system, and Nigeria inclusive, to address the peculiarity of its situations, its challenges, there is always that need to deploy what we refer to as structurally implementable strategy. And the structurally implementable strategy to guarantee energy security in Nigeria, to guarantee stability of oil and gas production in Nigeria, has eventually become the use of third-party surveillance company and the use of out-of-the-box thinking, a significant differentiation from the conventional means of protecting critical national assets. That being said, the possibility that Nigeria will meet our OPEC quota from next year, from a year going forward, and the possibility that Nigerian oil output will become more predictable and more systematic, reliable, is is visible to the extent that these companies that are engaging these people continue in this paradigm, continue in this conversation, continue in the CSR, continue in positive relationship with the people. When that is done consistently, Nigeria will be able to meet her quota. Nigeria will be able to meet the budget prediction of 1.84 barrels per day. And I am confident that we can do 2 million barrels a day. When you look at the actual quantity of capacity we have in terms of the crude oil availability within the Nigerian state especially specifically in the Niger Delta, you will know that we are seriously blessed. But like you said earlier, the issue has always been human interference. Some times ago, it was in hundreds of thousands. We're happy that today, in states like Bayelsa and sometimes in rivers, there are 0 infractions on the pipelines of Nigeria. If this continue, which some of us within the Niger Delta as critical stakeholders believe, apart from analyzing oil and gas to look at it from the benefit of the economy, the environmental degradation that oil and gas pollution causes, the tampering with facility you call vandalism or whatsoever, when you vandalize, even if you get caught, prosecuted, you leave a very terrible mark on the environment. Environment becomes bad, farmers cannot farm, fishermen will have to wait till that water gets clean, or eventually after a very long time it pushes away. So when we don't have incidences again, it is beyond just the output of the quantity. It extends to protecting the environment. It extends to guaranteeing that people will have a better aquatic ecological system. It extends to the fact that people can look outside the oil and gas itself and focus in agriculture. It extends to the fact that people can become more predictable in what they can plan. When I say predictable in terms of the people, the Niger Delta people will prefer a situation where the discussion within our region will not just be centered around oil and gas and military intervention alone.
We quite get your point on the need for inclusion at all levels in both the management of the infrastructure and in the determination of the control of the resources of oil in the Niger Delta. But let's expand the conversation a bit more, you know, the scope extending now to specifically Ogoniland. You have said that the issues of oil spillage and degradation cannot be unconnected with, the lack of inclusion, and by extension you're touching on the concern about, more often than not, sabotage by elements within the community. But environmentalists, speaking specifically about Ogoniland, are talking about the need for the decommissioning of some of the oil wellheads, because some have begun to, what's the environmental word now, corrode as a result of neglect over the years. How valid is that point, and does it trump sabotage? Can you rule out sabotage from some of the oil spills that we have seen in Ogoniland in recent times that has even necessitated the visit of the NSA?
The history of the Ogoni struggle and the history of oil pollution in the Niger Delta, and then the history of the advocacy for justice for Ogoni people are tripartite in nature. With the recent visit of the NSA, I think it is more of a follow-up to the decisions of the president in recent time. One, let me take the issues in bits. The first one is that some of the heads of the well heads have begun to erode, corrode, and all these things. Does it necessarily have relationship with human interference? In response to that, I want to make it explicitly clear that it is not all the oil incidences that are human related. There is tear and wear. There is natural ecological reality, and then sometimes when you talk of the onshore, you talk about the push and pull of the ocean wave that can tamper with this facility. Specifically, the issues in Ogoni. Yes, there were instances in the years past that it was human interference. And then the unfortunate incident we saw around Ogoni land that even led to the issues of political interference in Rivers State, which was believed to confirmed to be human interference. But in general, the Ogoni issue is greatly addressed now. What we will continue to say is that the expansion of the involvement of the Ogoni natives, the Ogoni people, in the discussion and approach to solving the Ogoni environmental reality should be a topmost priority.
And Ms. Odo,
the visit of the NSA is very beautiful.
Pardon me
the
to
intervention of
quickly,
security personnel is very beautiful.
Right.
But the Ogoni people themselves don't want to live in a very bad environment.
And to
they
be
are
fair,
conscious of this
Odo,
fact. And we will submit, therefore, that it will be in the interest of Nigeria and the Ogoni people that the approach
Odo,
of engaging the people.
Pardon me, I just want to
barely hear you.
And say that, in fact, we're going to explore this conversation with our next guest. But it's a very important one, and I'm glad that you were able to speak to it. But speaking to the CSR bit of ensuring energy safety and security in Nigeria, which PINL is exploring, I find that quite interesting because we've always known of the kinetic approach. We've tried different things, but it looks like this CSR approach is working. So maybe we just wind down by speaking to some of the specifics being done and then the results you're getting. So we can also replicate it in other parts. So is it in terms of schools, hospitals, scholarships, and the rest? So let's just identify them specifically so people have a better sense of what is being done.
Okay, specifically, there are interventions in the health facilities within the eastern corridor of the Niger Delta. There are interventions of scholarship for students within the Niger Delta. There are interventions for medical outreach. People who had medical issues that require consultancy and sometimes surgeries are attended to. And very importantly, there is meeting the needs of the community as they present it. Some communities have asked for improved transportation within their area. Some communities have requested for, what do we call it, community halls. Some communities had requested for roads. Some communities have requested for women empowerment. So these things are what constitute the CSR. When you go out of the use of the force of coercion, becomes unconventional method, then when you specifically address the needs of the people in a community-centric approach of programs, projects that benefits the people. Recently, in this December, we saw a large-scale give out to about 216 communities within the eastern corridor of the Niger Delta. Food items, material support, and some instances cash. This kind of thing, though not conventional in the protection of critical national oil and gas, but has become efficient and effective because it gives the people a sense of belonging and it gives the people a sense of being carried along. Then lastly, in times like this where there is festivity and you come to the people not with conferences, you come to the people not with boots on ground, you come to the people not with the use of coercion, and you come to them and try to make their celebrations a little bit better than they had planned it originally. It gives the people a sense of belonging. It gives them, it wakens their consciousness that they have been remembered. It wakens their confidence that partnering with these people makes it better for us to protect our critical national assets.
Yes. My apology, we're totally out of time, but we must commend PNL, Pipeline Infrastructure Nigeria Limited, because if you look at the numbers and the contribution they've made and all this unconventional method by literally making community-owned infrastructure by the way they've carried out these activities, I think it's commendable. So we must thank them and ensure that this is, as Kayode will say, replicated across board, because we need those numbers to keep rising in terms of production, and we need the breaches to keep coming down to zero. Victor Udo is the gas and energy expert joining us from our Abuja studios. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Kayode.
All right, let's switch gears now. Well, it's still in the same industry, and Mr. Odo had touched on it earlier on, but let's get some comprehensive perspective to this as we touch on, yes, the Ogoni area, the oil pollution, the aftermath. Recall that oil exploration stopped in 1993, but there's been this aggressive push to restart that. Naturally, this will boost Nigeria's oil production. But where are we right now, particularly with the NSA's visit? We're joined on the program by Lebatam Degwe, a former member of High Prep Governing Council, joins us virtually on the program. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Kayode. Compliments of the season to everyone.
I wish you the same, and I must say, I mean, the dressing speaks to the season as well. I should get my hat too and just twin with you.
Don't worry, we'll send you one from Ogoni where we are.
I would absolutely love that. But, you know, the NSA visited Ogoni land. There's been a lot of movement, meetings with the president. A lot of people are even linking the shake-up, particularly in the NUPRC now, to what is about to begin in Ogoni land. So maybe you can give us a picture of where we're at right now. Has there been enough reparation? Has there been enough, at least trying to restore the environment, maybe not to what it was, but close to what it was before we then say, let's start digging for oil again?
Well, thank you again, Kayode, and good morning, Nigerians. The whole Ogoni crisis, you know, typifies quite a lot of cries for people, you know, who want to ensure that they're dealt with properly, that, you know, their lives are improved, you know, and, you know, sustainably so, is as old as you have said, you know, even beyond 93. So it's a holistic type of thing. So one, yes, there's the issue of petroleum, which was explorations started in the late 50s, not just in Ogoni, but in, you know, Niger Delta particularly, up till, you know, the Ogoni awareness and advocacy across the whole world and sensitization of the people to the fact that the environment was degraded, you know, their lives weren't improving, they weren't, you know, getting any benefits from this resource that God put, you know, in their lands, you know. So that led to the unfortunate events of, one, the loss of lives of a lot of Ogoni people, the non-exploration of oil that is found, which is found particularly in the Ogoni context. And so it has remained topical. And then all the issues pursuant to that, the continuous clamor of the Ogoni people to have this addressed, the quantification of if there's any pollution and what its effects are, with the Nigerian, with the United Nations Environmental Program coming to do that assessment. The Nigerian government allowed that, and then there was a report produced and different methods to address that. So you've had high prep, you've had engagements at different levels to try to see if the crisis can be resolved and hopefully, you know, restart oil production. Fast forward to January this year, the government of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu has looked at it differently. It's had all the experiences as a government and the people to say, look, government has successfully wanted to do this, but there's been, you know, a learning process along the way. They've started and fallen at different times, but everybody's built on its experiences, and I think we're in a good place to start. The other bit in Ogoni is we've dealt with different tendencies, different voices. There's increased awareness. Ogonis expect a lot more. And so how do we marry this? So we're able to talk to the Ogonis holistically. We're able to see demands that are inclusive of all the voices in Ogoni brought onto the table. So we're clear about the fact that this is what Ogonis are saying as we seek to engage, government and Ogoni seeks to engage to resolve the crisis. And then hopefully at the end of the day, with an agreement following the resolutions of the issues that Ogoni wants and coming together, there's no reason why oil production can't start. Ogonis wants that, but I think it's about inclusiveness, it is about honesty, it is about respect for the integrity of the people, and that's shared prosperity between the state and the people, I think. So starting from 1958 to today, that's where we are. The National Security Advisor, as part of that, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu led focus on ensuring things work and ensuring that that engagement as agreed or as summed up by the Ogoni people is being addressed. It's a journey, it's beginning steps, but there's quite a lot of positivity. And there's enthusiasm in the community regarding that whole process. So that's where we are. That's what it is, that's where we are.
But you say that Ogonis are agreed on the call for the resumption of oil exploration in the land, but there are real issues of degradation. I mean, the visit by the NSA only last week was on the heels of a recent spill in Yola Wellhead, I believe. And as a result of that, I could also even cite, concerns about HIPREP's intervention, about infrastructure not being of standard. As a result of that, is the call for resumption of oil exploration realistic against the backdrop of the evident degradation in the community?
Thanks, Buki. A call for resumption on its own does not mean oil production has started. An agreement that we would want production to resume is predicated upon demands which the Ogoni community has made. If you remember, after President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's plea to Ogoni people to say, look, go and look at this. I want to hear what the people are saying and what their demands are. The dialogue process across all of Ogoni commenced sometime on February 8th this year. And that went on, up till September 24th, when the dialogue committee, brought back to the federal government to say this is the body of demands which Ogonis are saying would want met. And if these are met, and as we discuss and engage, oil production can commence. So it is that we want oil production to commence, but it is based on how much our demands as encapsulated in that report, which the Ogoni Dialogue Committee submitted to Mr. President, are met. That's one. Number two, in the whole responses and proposals and all that, it was quite clear. Some of what you've mentioned, we need to strengthen HIPREP. We need also to ensure that whatever infrastructure are looked at again. There's an audit, there's decommissioning, there's replacement. These are contained in that report as the body of Ogoni demands. So what you see is the federal government is looking at these. There's some ongoing things, but following the renewed demands, would these be strengthened? Yes. Is there a chance that this is looked at holistically? Yes. So we are not at the place where oil production has resumed. No. It is federal government looking at the demands as Ogonis presented, the whole body, 21 pages of demands, which is out there in the public space, and then seeing by how much these are addressed. So that builds confidence over time, that builds openness, that builds mutual respect, and hopefully in the not too distant future, we would begin to see a place where Ogoni say, look, this government has acted well. There's sincerity on government's part. This is different. You can come because we know that we'll be treated with respect, our environment will be degraded, and there'll be inclusive benefits to all of Ogoni. That's where we're seeing the steps. And I can say for having been around a long time, this is one of the first times we are seeing a bit of what we think is sincerity on government's part to begin to meet the multifaceted demands that you have mentioned. But we are not at the point where oil exploration has resumed. It is predicated upon the demands, some of which you have mentioned, and a lot of these are captured in the Ogoni document. And federal government has responded to some of them, like I said, say. The National Security Advisor at the directive of Mr. President. Let me come in for a moment
so that you can build, if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Sorry. Yes, I can hear you, Jeff.
Yes, for want of time, let's build on what you're already saying. And if we may posit some of these demands that have been met, and what level of, how much of it should be met before some level of work or exploration in this sense will start. Because the 21-page document, there are a couple of demands. I don't know how many can be met before it will be started. So what is the conversation behind closed doors as to government, if you get to point this, then we can now talk about point one, starting with exploration. So maybe you walk us through what you know.
I'm just one Ogoni person. So I can speak for myself, and then to the extent of, like you said, my involvement. One is Ogoni has brought demands, and so there are two parties, as it were. So if you look at Ogonis and government, so Ogoni demands are already on the table. Some of the demands include ongoing types of activities or processes. Some of them include confidence building, for things that already exist. So an example is the Eleme Junction to Ane segment of the East-West Road. It has been there for a long time. Successive administrations have tried to improve it. We are seeing that's been fast-tracked. A journey that would take me from Port Harcourt to Norway 2 hours early this year takes me about 20 minutes now. So there's a lot of work going on. It's due commissioning in April. That was one of what existed, which is the federal government's responsibility to do, which the Ogonis insisted that showing purpose and showing effort, would give the Ogoni larger community some of the hope and belief that this government is sincere. There's also the University of Environment and Technology at Kurumasa Akpewa. That had been accented to as a legislative bill about a year or 2 years ago in this legislative, in this particular Senate. Right. And then the Ogonis asked the government to say, look, you needed executive accent. This has been here. This demand for university, particularly with the focus around world's focus and Nigeria's focus on environment, remediation, and the issues advocacy, that the time is now. Mr. President promised that we would attend to it. It was accented. So those are things, the things that are ongoing which government should do. Right. There is ensuring that government works. There is ensuring that some of the reparations and strengthening of statutes, strengthening of activities, showing that the Ogonis are included in what's going on. Right. All of those are contained at different levels. And I think that's happening.
I think one issue that would stick out naturally is the reparation, the cleanup, and all of that. But I mean, you've laid bare the expectations, the prospects, and of course how the people believe this should happen. So we'll keep tracking this because it's vital to Nigeria as a nation. We'll be speaking with Dr. Lebatam Degwe, former member of High Prep Governing Council. Thank you for your time. I wish the Ogoni people the very best.
Thank you very much, Kaide. You take care and enjoy the holidays.
We'll try our best. So while we're working, we'll enjoy the same. But that's been the show for today, everyone. Thank you for watching. I'm Kaide Okikelu.
Sunrise Daily is up next. Ensure you have a very Merry Christmas even this weekend because the joy continues. I am Bukola Kulka.
And I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Bye-bye.